Welcome to Canada's Entrepreneur, where we talk to the entrepreneurs who are making it happen across Canada and deliver the news, trends, knowledge, and opinions from entrepreneurs.
Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor of Canada's Entrepreneur. Joining me today on Calgary's podcast is David Leinster, who is CEO of Contemporary Calgary. Thanks, David, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Mario.
Tell me just a little bit about Contemporary Calgary, what it is, and what you folks do.
Contemporary Calgary is housed in the historic Centennial Planetarium. We're Calgary's major modern and contemporary art gallery. We took occupancy of this building in 2020, and we've been around since 2014, when the city put an expression of interest as to a community group or partner who wanted to do something here in this building that sat vacant for a decade. So yeah, our focus is contemporary art, and we have incredible exhibitions, public programs. And I think, Mario, the thing that people maybe don't realize about Contemporary Calgary is we're not like a museum. So we don't actually have a collection. You don't come and see the same things over and over, as nice as that is to sort of develop relationships with, art in the community. But our exhibitions change every 5 months. And so you end up seeing between 10 and 15 different exhibitions, and it's always different. And I think that's what's so exciting about what our model, is.
So when you're talking about the art itself, is it like all over the place in terms of the type of art? Can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I would say that like our focus really is on local, national, and international art. And so that's maybe the first way that I'd answer that question, that it's really important to us that we give exposure to the artists in our community in surrounding area in Western Canada, and also with artists across the country, and then international dialogue. It's important that people know that Calgary has this incredible network and community of artists who live and work here, and it's also important to think about like Canadian art in an international context, and so the cross pollination of artists from different places is important. And I think, yeah, like as a contemporary art gallery, some people get stuck in the weeds of definition of what is modern and what is contemporary. I mean, generally, contemporary art really talks about the artists that are living and working today, and they're working in many different mediums, and painting and sculpture, new media, video, film, performance. And we work with artists that are doing all of these things, and many of these things. We have an installation in the Dome that opens on June 26th. And it's projection, it's sound, it's sculpture, it's ceramics, all in the historic Centennial Planetarium Dome. And so what's great about the gallery is that it's always different, it's always changing. And we're really excited to bring about all these different conversations that these artists put in their practice.
What plans do you have for the space there, and I guess the whole organization and business?
Yeah, like I would say that the thing we're working on now that really deals a lot with the future is we were given a major capital funding announcement from the government of Alberta, so $40 million commitment, and that adds to a $30 million commitment from the federal government back in 2019, and significant investments from the city. So we're about $100 million invested and committed into a $170 million capital campaign to bring about additional changes and expansions to this site. I think as Calgarians would know, this building has a huge history. It's been around since 1967. It's a centennial project. It was a planetarium. Then it was the Science Center from 1984 until it closed in 2011. And so this is its third major kind of shift in terms of who is in the building and what's happening. And I'm confident it will be its last. Like when you come into the building and see it as an art gallery, of course it wasn't built as one, but it's hard to disassociate it now with anything other than a space to celebrate the arts. But we're going to renovate the dome into Canada's first LED dome experience. So think Sphere Las Vegas North. The inside of our dome uses similar technology and LED technology rather than a projection. And that will be a really important kind of really leading activity that we do in the ways in which artists are working in digital media and immersive technology, but also the expansion of gallery spaces, building a new front entrance to the building that could maybe have some of the amenities that people love to have when they go to an art gallery. I want to have a coffee or have a lunch, see some art, sit down and talk with my friends about it, and have a bit of a gathering space. And then I would say that those changes are important because this building has had many changes. And I think as our architect, Bruce Kuwabara at KPMG Toronto, he said, this project is one part archaeology, going around and finding all the original concrete around the building you see behind me. It's one part plastic surgery, maybe removing some of the additions over time that don't serve our purposes super well, and then one part new construction. So lots is changing.
So let's talk a little bit in more general terms about art, and specifically in Calgary. I don't, I'm not sure where you're from originally, but the impression is that Calgary is not as cosmopolitan as, say, a Montreal or a Vancouver or Toronto. Can you speak about that and where we're at, and especially when it comes to the art scene in Calgary today, as opposed to maybe 20 years ago, even 10 years ago?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think, Calgary has always been a cosmopolitan city. I think we have a branding problem, not so much our own branding problem, but I think we have been branded, and we have a being branded problem that, we're this little town in the prairies. And, I'm sure there are some people perhaps in other parts of the country who are wondering whether or not we have McDonald's yet. But I think the reality is that we have been this amazing contemporary city. I mean, give consideration to this. The Alberta University of the Arts is celebrating their 100th anniversary. So for 100 years, we've had an art college and university in this community. We have incredible galleries, the Esker Foundation. We have the Glenbow Museum, who's been around for quite a long time. We have the Art Gallery of Alberta, which is also just celebrating their 100th anniversary. And so, I think it's interesting when people think that somehow Calgary is not contemporary, or they're somewhat surprised. I think that has a lot to do with like an unknowing and ignorance in the best sense. They just don't know what's out here. And so I would invite all of those people to get on a plane or train or drive across the prairies and come see what's happening in Calgary. I think if I were to think about this, I was born in Ontario, grew up in the Maritimes, moved here in 2005. So I've lived here longer than anywhere. And in the past 15 years, I think the big shifts that I've seen have mostly come from like architecture. You have the Norman Foster building with the Yom Plenza sculpture in the front. You have the Telesky building, Bjarke Ingels. You have incredible public art everywhere in the city, in one of the cities with the most public art, I think. We have this Snowetta Library. We've got the National Music Center. So I think architecture, for me, in my own experience in the last 15 years, has signaled that we're a city that has big ideas, and we invest in like really great design and architecture. And that's supported by like so many different industries. So it's a really exciting place, and I think that people are starting to figure this out. And in conversations that I have in, national events like, the Canadian Arts Summit and other places, the amount of conversation that's being directed and saying, what's happening in Calgary? There's the largest arts and cultural infrastructure project at Arts Commons happening. The Glenbow Reimagine project is underway. Our project just got funded and is about to start construction. And so that's a lot of investment in the arts. And it's so heartwarming to see, because I think these types of experience that drive like the quality of life that you and I may experience in a community, they're driven by these experiences. You want to live in a city with a great ballet, a great opera. You want to go to galleries. You want to go to museums. You want to have all of these experiences. It's what draws people here. It's what keeps them here. And Calgary has got a lot to say right now, and it's really exciting.
Personally, I agree with what you're saying. I think it's come down to more of a branding problem and a storytelling problem. Is that I think and not to knock this, but every year that we have the Stampede and everybody goes,
Yeah.
That's what this city is known about. But I think as a city itself, I think we need to tell the story more of the other things that we have out there, and
Yeah.
especially the art scene. Now, what
Well,
do you
and even sorry, just to maybe to touch on that, Mario, even the Stampede has become quite contemporary. I mean, they have one of the largest drag festivals, drag me to brunch. We have they had the pink shirt campaign. They have all of this activity. They're having new activations from brands like Holt Renfrew. I mean, you never have would have thought that Holt Renfrew would sponsor the Stampede, but that's just talking about the ways in which this really important event that happens in Calgary, that perhaps has too singular a definition of what it is. It's really a celebration of all that is exciting and that I think connects us as a community. That really, those things about Western hospitality, they're not really buzzwords. Like I really feel them, and I don't feel them because my family homesteaded here. I feel them because it's like, I'm sure maybe you feel the same way, that there's just a generosity to people and community, and that is in every aspect of any job or volunteer opportunity I've ever had.
You think we're from the art perspective, and you mentioned a lot of the projects that are going on, and again, it goes beyond just straight art. It's art and entertainment and culture and all that. But do you think we're just on the kind of the beginning of an explosion here, like when everything comes together? Like, what is this city going to look like in 5, 10 years?
Yeah, I think so. Like a lot of my colleagues and friends, whether it's Alex at Arts Commons or Andrew at the National Music Center, I think what we talk about is that Calgary's really having like a cultural renaissance. And is it new and cusping? No. I mean, there's people like Jean Grandmate who were bringing contemporary ballets to this community 20 years ago that became international acclaim of these performances and these contemporary works in a traditional art form. There have been trailblazers for many, many, many decades here, but I think like that's like how you throw stone in water and the ripples, go. So when you have these visionary leaders who come before us, it gives permission and space for all of us to say like, no, let's keep this going. And I think it's that spirit, that push. So I would feel, how would I say this? I feel like this is a renaissance that's happening right now. Like it's this swell, and people are recognizing that the investment in experiences, investments in culture and community, they make this a city that people want to be around and they want to invest in. And I think finally that is really being understood at all levels of government, right? Locally, provincially, nationally. And it feels, I guess, sometimes like overdue recognition, but we'll take it.
You think that from that, you just mentioned a little bit about that, and just maybe explore this a little bit more. But
Yeah.
the fact that the arts and cultures, the investment into that is a bigger investment, right? Because it attracts people, it attracts tourists, it attracts they maybe companies that come here that, oh, this is a cool cosmopolitan city. It attracts people coming downtown, say for instance, in like Calgarians or Albertans, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all true. And if you look at like the investments in Calgary in terms of downtown revitalization strategy, which is all about like supporting tax base and supporting services that can be delivered, well, there are many reasons to come downtown. We're one of them, right? Like these downtowns of cities are important. They represent something that defines a community more broadly, and they unite us in certain aspects and ways. And I think that those investments have been really deliberate and important things to sort of signal toward. And you see it there. There's also this discussion about like, okay, well, arts are a nice to have. No, they're not. They're a need to have. And I think that's emphasized in so many different ways. I mean, the think about it even strictly from like an economic standpoint. Like a dollar invested in the arts has tremendous return from a GDP, from a growth. I think the statistics is something like over 600,000 people work in the creative sector in Canada. It's like larger than forestry and lumber and fishing and all these types of industries combined. Like there's statistics to look at through organizations like Canadian Arts Coalition and others, or even looking at our Calgary's own Calgary Arts Development. They do tremendous work in trying to just articulate that investing in these things is actually great for our local economy. They are not just like these fringe things that are just nice to have, occasionally when I'm feeling bored. No, they're super foundational. And more Calgarians I know, are feeling that because our attendance is skyrocketing. The attendance at theater and festivals and events are skyrocketing. The proof is in the pudding, and we're just so thrilled, like, because it just feels good when you have the community support and backing, and you see new people coming all the time.
How long have you been there?
I have been here, complicated question. I have been employed in my role since 2018 when I was appointed CEO of Contemporary Calgary, but working on this file dates back to when I first arrived in Calgary in 2005. So I'm an advertising person by background. And so one of my earliest clients was the Institute for Modern and Contemporary Art. And my client, Darcy Levesque, who's a good mentor and friend and a huge champion of the arts in Calgary for so many decades, he was working on some revised stationery and branding for IMCA's work, which was really one of the driving forces trying to understand, like, why is it that Calgary does not have a major destination dedicated to contemporary art? At the time, we were like the only ones, the only city in North America with a population over 1 million without this scale of gallery experience. And that's I must say, when I say that, to say that it's not that we're without contemporary art. Like, the Esker is an incredible, like, nationally leading organization and foundation in our community. We have tremendous artist run centers and galleries and commercial opportunities to engage with art. But like Edmonton has the AGA, Vancouver has the Vancouver Art Gallery. That was the type of thing that Calgary didn't have for some strange reason. And so I started working on some branding projects for that organization. And then I was a volunteer from then all the way through to being one of the people who was asked to help coordinate the submission to the city to pitch the planetarium. So I have been involved as a volunteer from this organization between 2005 and 2018. And part of the reason of sort of taking a really interesting career shift was that I've never actually felt more connected to something when you give back and you care deeply and passionately about contemporary art as I do personally. And you have, through the benefit of being mentored and guided by many amazing Calgarians who have led me in different career capacities, that I felt like it was such a wonderful opportunity to apply those skills in a way that I knew that I could make a difference and help take this thing from, like, concept into a reality. So I'm really proud about what this entire team has accomplished. I was employee 3 at the time when I was hired, and we now have a team of 20 people. I think my first budget was a little less than $1 million. It's now a $5 million organization. So there's a tremendous amount to be proud of. And the more ideas and interest and investment that people put their time and energy into centering the arts as a defining characteristic of what Calgary is, it's a worthy cause. It's a project of passion. It's a huge privilege for me to hold this position. And, I know the whole team here feels the same way about the work we do.
All right, super. Thanks so much, David, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
All right, that was David Leinster, who is CEO of Contemporary Calgary. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor of Canada's Entrepreneur. Thanks for joining us today.